Welcome to Response Able Parenting, the podcast that shows you how to parent in alignment to your emotions, needs, and goals versus your programming, bad advice, and let's face it, outdated strategies that just don't work. You'll get in the trenches support on nervous system and emotional regulation, critical mindset shifts, stronger communication strategies, and more. In this podcast, you'll gain transformational tools that take you from reacting to every frustration to responding with clarity, regulation, and finally setting the example you desire for your kids. I'm Becky Jennings, your new parenting coach, and this is the Responsible Parenting Podcast. Let's get into it. Hello, welcome back. I wanted to talk about something that was striking to me this week. It's not new to me. It's not something that I haven't thought of either, but the volume of people that I spoke to this week, I probably had a dozen conversations with parents of ADHD kids this week, and virtually every single conversation that I had, they said something to the effect of, if my kid is acting like this now, what will they be like when they're older, when they're 18, when they're in a relationship? There were so many conversations of, if my son is acting like this, will he be a man who doesn't take no for an answer? Or if my daughter continues to have these huge emotional outbursts, will anybody ever take her seriously? Or will she be able to actually hold down a job? This deep, real fear that parents were experiencing about their child's trajectory in life based off the behaviors that they were experiencing was very palpable. And I have shared these fears as well of, if my son can't nail this now, what is it going to be like in middle school or in high school? Or will he be, the really challenging employee who always is trying to figure out a way to, get his way at work? And so I want to address that this is a real fear. This is a real, tangible fear that is very scary for many parents because with ADHD, the negative behavior loops can feel so relentless and they can feel ever present. It's almost like it's always lurking in the background of the situation. We never can quite trust whether or not what we're experiencing is real, if it's a projection of something that, we've asked them to do. And so they're just playing the part. Or can I trust that this is the new way of doing this? Is this an outlier? What sometimes, and the ever-present question that is in our heads on a regular basis is, what do they want because they're acting like this? Like, what are they trying to get? If they're doing something really positive, or if their behavior is really good, there's always that sneaky suspicion in the back of our heads, like, what do they want? Why are they acting like this? And so those two specific narratives of, if my child can't figure this out now, what are they going to be like when they're older? And when they're acting like doing what we want and acting well, what are they trying to get out of it? How are they trying to manipulate us? Those are two top questions and top sentiments that I hear over and over and over again inside of my community, inside of the calls that I have with parents on a weekly basis. And so I want to address how that can show up in the way that we parent, and hopefully give a little bit of a mental reframe on why we're feeling this, and then also what it is telling our nervous system and how that impacts the way we, in fact, respond to our children. So, the underlying fears that you are experiencing, yes, are very, very real. There are many of us who have family members that are grown adults and have ADHD or show similar behavior traits. And that isn't the ideal outcome that we see for our child. We've also seen a million representations of this on TV. So we're very primed to see, like, oh gosh, that's the villain character, or they're the, mess up character, or the bad sheep character. All of these things have such specificities to it, and we can see our child in those behaviors. So we have this sensation, we have this subconscious belief system really deeply ingrained. The narrative is real. And when we experience our child doing something negative that we can see as not something ideal for their future, it's linked to a sensation inside of our body. So our body does this really incredible thing. Every event, every experience, every memory, everything we have ever been a part of is logged in our subconscious, and it's also tagged with a nervous system sensation. Positive, neutral, negative, doesn't matter, tagged. So when we are watching our child do something that is out of alignment with how we hope that their future is going to look, that nervous system is activated, right? We are triggered and a sensation starts to percolate in our body. It's our nervous system's warning that we are moving out of our window of tolerance. We are suspecting a threat. We are feeling uncomfortable. And at the exact same time, literally at the exact same millisecond that this is happening, our body is scanning, our brain is scanning for narratives that support the sensation, anything that has been tagged with this sensation. So, when we've seen a movie or when we've experienced this in our own family, or when we have an example of somebody at the office who has done this, literally any of that evidence is brought to the forefront of this interaction with our child. Now, when all that evidence comes flooding into the present moment, our body isn't smart enough, our brain isn't designed to filter it out in the heat of the moment and say, well, the way Steve acts in the office, yes, that's annoying and he is in fact a jackass, but that's actually not how my child, like, that's not the values that we are raising him in. That's so far out, and there are so many steps in between that correlation and that jump is pretty intense, but we do it in a nanosecond because of the sensation linked to that feeling, that moment. So I want to first pause and say what's happening for you is completely normal. It's our body's way of protecting ourselves, and it's literally the nervous system's job to protect us against any future threats. So feeling uncomfortable and feeling threatened, they're very different things, but our nervous system isn't quite dialed in enough to differentiate discomfort from true danger. And so it's sounding the alarm bells exactly as if it is. So when we are in this state where we have this very real fear, we have tangible evidence of people who are like, yep, that's a no for me. That's definitely a no for me. I don't want him to ever act like that. Oh my God, if she acts like this, we're screwed. We have those people and we have those visuals. When we see our child acting similar or, like in that sort of vein, right? We are going to experience that sensation and then the evidence is going to come flooding in. And right in that moment, we are now having the argument. We are now correcting. We are now addressing the situation from that fear versus, this is a teachable moment, or this is a moment where I can offer guidance. We are bringing in those future fears. We are lacing all of that worry and all of that potential danger into the way we are responding in the moment. So typically what happens is we are shutting it down. We're getting way harsher in our reaction because we don't want them to ever think that this is acceptable. So we are piling on corrections and consequences. We're threatening. We are doing anything we can to basically say, warning to the child, there is no shot you act like that in this house, right? And they're like, whoa, that seemed like a big reaction. But instead of, again, because they don't have the nervous system and the mental awareness to be like, hey, their nervous system is reacting from future fears. All their nervous system is saying, see, you should feel threatened by your parents. See, you should be defensive and deflective. And then that whole cycle, and we're stuck in the reactive trap, and it just goes on and on like that. And then there's a huge explosion, and we go to bed feeling super guilty. And we're just like, wow, that didn't get resolved. And I guess I need to come down harder in order to really prevent this from ever happening. I'm sure many people are sitting here going, yep, that's exactly what happens on a daily basis because it can feel so scary to have that future image and not feel like you have the tools to equip your child in the moment. And so, if we don't feel like we have the tools, if we don't feel like we have the skills, then what is going to happen is we are going to do every single thing we can to shut it down and protect ourselves from feeling so crappy. So, we're protecting ourselves. That's what our nervous system is telling us to do, protect yourself from this future pain because it never wants us to feel future pain. And number two, we're not reacting from the moment, we're reacting from that already super agitated place that is so many millions of steps ahead, but we're reacting from that place versus just being able to logically and sequentially say, in this moment, my child isn't acting in alignment with what we're working towards. This is a teachable moment. I'm going to say something you might not expect. Losing it over the teeth brushing battle again with your ADHD child isn't a patience problem. It's an expectation problem. Your child should know this by now. You've had this exact same fight hundreds of times, and they have to do this every single day. But they keep ending up in the same reactive trap, and so do you. Before You Lose It is a step-by-step video workbook combo that helps you get out of this reactive cycle for good. It is available right now. Trust me, this is one worth pausing the episode for. So jump into the show notes, grab Before You Lose It, and feel the shift in under 39 minutes. The very first step out of this is recognizing that you're in the gap, recognizing that your expectations are not matching what your child is able to do in that moment. So naming it, naming that you are in a misaligned moment, right? I call that the expectation gap. A misaligned moment where our expectations of performance or ability are not aligned with our child's ability in reality. That gap can create a lot of internal chaos for us to the point where, again, our nervous system is going to jump into protective and reactive mode, and we're going to be addressing it from that place. So, first and foremost, it's almost just write down all of your future fears. I think it's really valuable to write them all down and be like, I fear like they're going to become a narcissist. I fear that my child will try to get their way in every situation, even when authority or coaches or bosses are telling them no. I fear that they will yell at everybody. I fear that they are going to punch somebody in a bar when they're 21, when, they get in their first fight, like write them all down. And let's start to look at what skills need to be addressed in order to avoid those. I know this sounds like maybe an odd exercise, like I'm writing down all of my future fears about my child. Yeah, write down all of your future fears about your child because that's going to identify the gap in skills that your child still needs to learn. And hopefully, you have several years to teach that. A lot of the people that I work with, their kids are between 5 and 13. And so there's a huge amount of time between those ages until they're independent and on their own. So, for instance, if you're like, I'm really afraid they're not going to take the answer no, and they are going to take it too far with maybe a love interest, right? That's a huge fear I hear all the time, that my child will just do whatever they want. They're not going to take no for an answer. So we're really working on the skill of hearing no multiple different ways and being able to handle when somebody says no. So that's a frustration skill. That's a listening skill. That's being able to identify and read bodily cues. And so from there, we can actually start to build and develop those skills through games, through pointing things out in books. I wonder what that person's face is saying when they're not, when you're pointing at the TV or you're watching a show. I wonder, could you tell that she, got upset in that scene? All of those things are really subtle ways of continuing this conversation. If you're like, the subtlety is not going to work, I need a heavy hitter, then inside the program that I run every single week with my clients is we actually walk these type of situations through the blueprint. And so we can actually create simulations that would match what skill needs to be developed. And then we basically, through the information, the data you collect in the simulation, we continue to refine and tweak until the skill is developed. And so this is the type of stuff that really helps us as parents start to eliminate the harsh reactivity in the moment because of those future fears that are amplifying the storylines that are in our head. Also, helping us retrain our nervous system, saying, you're in the gap because you have such an intense fear about this future outcome that if I can slow down and I can start to recognize I'm in this gap, this is a skill deficit. It's not a reflection on my child's character and who they're going to be in the next 10 years. Okay. Now that I've identified that in the gap, my expectation is not being met right now. How can I support my child to learning that skill? This is how we start to develop a calmer body when we address these chronic challenges with our kids. Because willpower isn't going to get us there. Just being your kid's punching bag for all of their dysregulation is not going to get you there. Feeling like it's all your fault because they haven't learned this is not going to get you there. It's these external systems that we have to rely upon so we start to develop the skills that, quite frankly, were never taught to us. But just because it's not our fault doesn't mean it's not our responsibility to actually dig in, do the work so we can prevent these future outcomes, because all of these are preventable. Now, yes, will your child still have impulses because they have ADHD? Yeah. But can we build such a secure foundation and build so many supportive tools for our child that even in the face of temptation, they still know what to do because we've simulated it enough times that they feel really solid in their ability to choose? Yeah. And that's what we do every single day inside of the program. So, this program is really designed to help you eliminate those future fears by almost reverse engineering this scary, scary outcome. And actually, through data and not the emotional fear based place, we actually start to look at, okay, if we are afraid that they'll never hold down a job or that they're going to manipulate people, what are the actual skills necessary, the social emotional skills, the emotion management skills, the actual physical skills of managing responsibility, of having things that people rely on you to do that is actually just your sole responsibility in an organization, right? Home, we can do that. We could simulate that inside the home. So there are so many ways that we can start to chunk this back and reverse engineer the fear so we can make up that gap. And then the more we just start to wash, rinse, repeat this skill development, the more we can start to say, we can start to eliminate that future fear because we see the proper progression. And not only that, but as we're building our own sort of nervous system protocol, as we're understanding where we are in the expectation gap and we're starting to work ourselves in, through that reactive trap, right? We're also our nerve teaching and reteaching our nervous system that we don't have to respond from this fear-based place. We actually can get ourselves out through a nervous system regulation tool. We can help ourselves move out of the, high emotion back into logic, back into reasoning. We can start to say, this is a skill thing. Okay. How do we bolster that skill? What is the first step we could take into having my child start to understand this better? And that is so freeing so that we're not just constantly thinking that we're failing, that we're doing it wrong, that there's no hope, that all is lost. Because, and I know this so deeply and so intimately, that every single moment can feel like this build up to the next, can feel like this relentless attack on your system. And it can feel like your parenting is always being resisted and you're always getting pushback. And just like, how much can one person take? But again, because this is not your fault, doesn't mean that we don't need to take any ownership of it. And it doesn't mean that we don't play a critical role in the development of their future. If we are meeting all of these moments with fire, if we are meeting all of these moments with criticism, if we are meeting all of these moments with just such frustration and disdain for the behavior, it actually reinforces the bad kid narrative. And what I know to be true is when you feel like you are in fact this bad kid, then what's the point in trying? We're just going to keep following this narrative because it's been almost like predetermined and decided for you. And so we have this really beautiful opportunity to reverse that train, that bad kid trajectory. And we actually get to say to our kids, this isn't a you thing. This is a skill thing. I'm learning these skills for the very first time. How awesome that we get to learn this together. You can help me with my, emotion management. I'm giving you full permission to tell me I'm in the expectation gap. That's very helpful. That is very, like, when we can have that sort of back and forth, we're teaching our children truly, truly how to be in a relationship where people are able to, we're not walking on eggshells around each other. We're able to be held accountable for our actions. Yes, you are absolutely allowed to have every single feeling you want in the entire world. No one is ever saying that. But there are behaviors that are allowed and behaviors that are not allowed. And it can feel like our child is just doing all the behaviors that aren't allowed. It can be a combination of just, we're stuck in the reactive trap. This is the loop. This is the pattern we're stuck in. It can be a combination of how harshly we come down on them and they've partially kind of given up on it and they're just feeding into the narrative. And a large part of this is a skill deficiency. They just don't actually know what to do instead. So we can turn this whole thing on its side. And when we show up in a totally different way, meaning we're showing up with more empathy, with more awareness, with more understanding of what their brain is actually doing and how it's processing, we're showing up with a huge amount of skills and support from the community. And we're learning all of this stuff in conjunction with them, and we're teaching them. And we're building this collaborative, accountable system inside the home where we can actually call each other out when we're not living into the expectation or the plan, or we're falling back into the reactive trap pattern. There's so many beautiful ways that we can eliminate these future fears from becoming reality. And if this is something that you want to explore, definitely jump into a future masterclass so that you can see how the system works. You can get like a bird's eye view of the system. And if you're like, I've heard her talking about this so many times, I'm just going to jump in. Like, jump into the program. Honestly, there's nothing to lose. You have a 14-day money back guarantee. So there is truly nothing to lose, and everything to gain. You gain the perspective that is so necessary for us as ADHD parents. You gain so many tools so that you're not sitting here moving from reaction to reaction, frustrating moment to frustrating moment, correction to correction, and just running yourself ragged, and you're just on this hamster wheel, not able to get off of this, and you just have no idea how to approach the situation differently. You get all of that because you get my eyes on your patterns. You get my eyes on your complete home environment, so I can start to guide you to a better outcome so that these future fears are a thing of the past and you can actually be responding in the moment with what's happening in the moment, not all these fear-based projections of what could possibly come down the line. I hope that was really helpful. Just know that if you do feel this, you are exactly like every single person inside of my community, and you are exactly like me. And these fears can grip us and take hold of us, but they don't have to control it. They don't. And there are so many ways to get out of this. So let's connect, dive in, and we will make those future fears a thing of the past. I will see you next week. Thank you for listening to the Response Able Parenting Podcast. If you like what you heard, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. If you know someone who would benefit from this podcast, I'd be honored if you'd share this episode with them. Until next time, Know that you are enough, you are capable, you've made it through all of your hardest days, and we will keep growing on this parenting journey together. This podcast was produced by Kim Kelty and myself, Becky Jennings, and edited by the Kelty Method, Branding and Podcasting.